Hello, and welcome back to the Inner Rewrite. Now, if you've been following this channel, you'll recognize this theme. The difference between conditioning and your true self. You might remember when I talked about the tortoise and the hare. Well, this is the deeper layer of that same idea. Today, we're going into how that conditioning actually gets installed. Now, years ago, I wrote a song and I recently revisited it. And one line keeps playing in my mind. It's never too late to make a start. It's never too late to open your heart. And yeah, I know you've probably heard versions of this before. Wake up, be yourself, live authentically. But here's what most people don't talk about. Why it's so hard to actually do this. And what's really happening underneath when you finally shift from living someone else's life to living your own. That's what we're going to get into today. Not just the inspiration, the mechanics. So let's get started. Here's what happens. From birth, you're absorbing different beliefs, messages, and patterns. It's work hard to prove your worth. Life is meant to be a grind. Don't trust your own knowing. Trust the system, the experts, everyone but yourself. Play it safe. Don't stand out. Fit in. And at first, these are just ideas floating around. But you hear them over and over from parents, teachers, society, media, and eventually they stop being external messages and they become your operating system. Your subconscious mind doesn't judge these beliefs, it just accepts them as instructions, as reality, and as truth. And over time, years and decades, these patterns get reinforced so many times that they become neural pathways, hardwired, automatic. They literally become part of your brain structure. That's not metaphor, that's neuroscience. Neurons that fire together, wire together. You've been running the same patterns for so long that they've become your default programming. And here's what that means. The lies you were told, you didn't just believe them, you embodied them. They became part of your physical structure, your energetic frequency, your identity. But, and this is crucial, what got wired in can be wired out. Now, your brain has neuroplasticity. Your nervous system can be reprogrammed. Your frequency can shift. The patterns feel solid and they feel permanent. They feel just like who you are. But they're not, okay? They're just habits, that's all. Deep, deep habits, but still changeable. So, what does it actually mean to wake up? To shift from autopilot to conscious living? So it means taking back authority of your own system, not controlling everything around you. That's exhausting and impossible. But choosing who you are and how you operate. It means following the path back to your authentic pattern, your real design. Not the version that got praised, not the version that kept you safe, but the real one. And I know, You might be thinking, how do I even know what's real from truth and conditioning? This is how your real self creates energy and your conditioning just drains it. So think of it like this. In physics, everything has a natural resonance frequency. When something vibrates at its natural frequency, then energy will just flow efficiently. No more resistance. But when you force something to vibrate at the wrong frequency, then you get resistance, friction, and energy loss. Your true self is your natural frequency. And when you're aligned with it and you're living from it, then energy flows. Things just feel effortless, because you're working with your design. Now, your conditioning is a distortion of that frequency. So it's interference. And when you're operating from conditioning, constant constraint, constant friction, and constant depletion. So, you're working against your design. That's why you could achieve all the right things and just still feel exhausted because you're broadcasting the wrong frequency. You're trying to be someone you're fundamentally not. And here's what shifts when you do realign. You're not fighting yourself anymore. You're not constantly swimming upstream. You're finally working with your natural pattern. And that takes way less force. And it's not because life becomes easier, but because you're no longer adding unnecessary resistance. Now, you might be thinking, I've spent decades building a life around the wrong frequency, I've made so many choices from conditioning, haven't I missed my window? Isn't it too late? But no, you haven't, okay? Here's what quantum physics shows us. The past isn't fixed. Seriously, in quantum mechanics, observation affects reality retroactively. Now, your present awareness literally changes how past events are structured in your consciousness, which means when you shift now, when you choose differently in this moment, you're not just changing your future, you're recognizing your past. All those years you spent getting it wrong, they weren't wasted, they were data. Information your system needed to finally recognize what's not you, so you can discover what is. It's never too late, and it's just never too late to make that start or to open your heart and to yourself, to what's real and to what's possible. Right now, in this moment, you can choose a different frequency. You could start seeing things differently and start treating yourself like someone worth listening to instead of someone who needs to be fixed. Start trusting that quiet knowing that you've been ignoring. The time is now, not when you're ready and not when you've figured it all out, but right now. And that essence inside you, that authentic pattern, that true frequency, it's been broadcasting this whole time, just waiting for you to tune back in. So don't abandon it, okay? Because it's the most real thing about you. So I'm not going to tell you that once you align with your true self that everything becomes nice and easy, because that's just not how it works. Life is complex. It's not either or. It's both and. You know, we live in a reality which contains deep love and deep pain as well, beauty and suffering and connection and loneliness. And most of us just want to collapse it, into one thing. We just want the good without bad. But that's just not how life works. It's both, and it's always both. There's no neat beginning and no tidy end. We're actually part of something infinite, something that existed before we were born and continues after we're gone. Now, in physics terms, you're a localized expression of a non-local field. You're a wave and a particle, finite and infinite. So when you really get that, when you feel it, not just understand it intellectually, but really feel it, then something will shift. You'll realize you're not separate. You're not doing this alone. You're part of a larger intelligence, a larger pattern, a larger unfolding. And that feels like coming home. Like remembering something you always knew, but you forgot. You're connected, not just to other people, but to the whole process, the entire field. And there's peace in that. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're finally aligning with what is. You're finally there. So here's where we are. You have a choice. You can keep running the old programming, keep broadcasting the conditioned frequency, keep performing the version that gets approval, or you can redefine. You can redefine who you are, what you believe, what's actually true for you. Not because something's wrong with you, but because you're ready to stop pretending. There's something inside you that knows this, something you just can't ignore anymore. That's your true self, your authentic frequency. And it's saying, now it's time. This is your life, your expression, your unique pattern to broadcast. So show up and make it real. Not perfect, not polished, not impressive to anyone else. Just true, just you. Just what exactly wants to come through you instead of what you think should. So here's what I invite you to practice this week, okay? Just one small thing. Ask yourself, what beliefs have I been running that aren't even mine? Maybe it's I have to prove I'm worthy, or maybe it's I've missed my chance, or it could be this is how life is, or I can't trust myself. Now, just notice it, okay? You don't have to delete it or fix it. Just recognize it. See it for what it is, programming, a pattern, not truth. Just a frequency you've been tuned to. And once you see it clearly, once you recognize it as conditioning instead of reality, you can start to question it. And that question, that's the shift. That's the first domino, okay? And that's where everything just begins to change. One small shift is enough to start. So if this resonates with you and you want support on this path, then I'm building a community for women who are helping each other because we're done performing and we're just ready to live. You know, to live our life from the real pattern within us, our own design. Now, it's free to join, okay? And this is a community so that we can share and work together. Real talk, real conversations, and no fluff. Now, there's also a free pocket guide if you do join, and which you can download, and it's a guide to help you recognize from your true self and your conditioned self, so that you can start to, do this work. And next week, we're going to start a new series of videos, and I'm looking forward to that. So we're going deep, but if you enjoyed this, I think you're going to love it. So remember, okay, it's never too late to turn back into your real frequency. Never. It's never too late to open your heart, to start living from truth instead of programming. You've spent enough time being who you thought you should be, so now it's time to discover who you actually are. And the answer is nowhere out there. It's already inside you, broadcasting, just waiting. You just have to stop, listen, and trust what you find. So until then, see you next Monday.
We came into this world, we came to rejoice. We came into this world, we came to find our voice.